Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Iarmhi TV Intercounty podcast, week number 9. As you can see, Ray Gavin is not around this week, so unfortunately, you must bear with me now for the next 45 minutes to an hour, and I'll see can we get us through this. But welcome to my guests. Right beside me here is Gerry Buckley, Brendan Shaw just here, and further from me is Pat O'Brien. Welcome, lads.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks, Alan.
We'll have to start off straight away with the absolutely wonderful victory yesterday for Coláiste Mhuire against Tralee CBS in the All-Ireland Hogan Cup final. Gerry, I'll come to you first. You've been many's a year following these lads, different teams in Westmeath around the place, and I presume especially yesterday brought nearly a tear to your eye.
I'm getting on now, and just up in front of me, that's the Leinster Cup, the Brother Bosco, that's the Hogan Cup there. And my father, as I often say, taught in Finians. The last time they won it was in 1966, and he brought me in as a 9-year-old into the dressing room to hold that up. And as Denis was saying, that's the third version of the Hogan Cup. They've had 3 over the years, but the great news is that there's now a Mullingar Westmeath name on that cup, Coláiste Mhuire, and it was a day of immense pride for us all as West. First, people talk about Carmelite Moat winning, which they did. They won 3 All-Irons, but they were, while they had a lot of Westmeath people involved, like they had a lot of borders. This is the first all-Westmeath team ever to win the Hogan Cup, and to do it the way they did, to come back when it looked as if, it was going to be agony against a Kerry team in Croke Park, and Kerry have been winning everything, as we know. Like Kerry traditionally, the top country in Ireland over the years, but every cup that's been there to be won in recent times, Kerry have won it, but they didn't win this one. Is the latest recipient of the Hogan Cup. Ironically, as someone who wrote the history of the Hogan Cup in 2003, the first captain back in 1946, a man called Pat O'Neill, Dr. Pat O'Neill up in Oma, I got a text the day before the match to say he had died at the age of 97, and I would have been at the funeral if I wasn't in Croke Park. It's a bit of a nostalgia because he's a pure gentleman, and so the latest recipient is Mikey Weir, and what a proud day that is for every Westmeath man.
We got off to a wonderful start. I think I'd say every football and hurling fan in Westmeath was watching the match yesterday. Denis, we got off to a great start with a couple of very early goals. I think listening to the interviews of the championship really, but got off to a great start yesterday.
Yeah, a massive start. In a high pressurised game, you want to start well and get comfortable and just relax into the game. And I suppose we spoke about on many occasions during this podcast during the year how important Will Scahill has been to this team. And straight away he was on the end of a ball and put it in the back of the net, and that settled it. And when your main guy starts so strongly, it kind of lets the whole team relax. And I felt that's what he did. And as the game got on, they started to progress and get more confident, and they got a grasp of the game, because playing Kerry, any team from Kerry, an All-Ireland final is I suppose the toughest opposition you're going to come against, and to start the way they did, it was brilliant to see.
Yeah, they didn't do it the easy way though either, Brendan. They went from nearly having the game won to nearly losing the game to having to come back and try and win it again. It was a nervous watch.
It sure was. As Denis said, they had scored 2-5 in the first 15 minutes, and they looked to be in total control. But the Tralee got into the game and slowly but surely kept, kicking points over the bar, and it was we got another goal before Michael Maloney got a good goal before half time to put a 6 in it again. But we struggled then in the second half with possession, and I've noted about this team over the year and has been character. They showed tremendous character to come back, when the chips were down there in the second half, and they got the last 2 or 3 that the resilience of that team and the character. And Will Scahill bookended this game. He started it with the goal and he finished it with the point, and I think it's apt that he was the player that was on the end of that score, because he has been the talisman for this team. Now, okay, one man doesn't make a team, but he and that team and the mentors and everybody associated with the team can be very proud Westmeath don't win All Irelands too often, and as Gerry said here last week, today, and over the year, like, they showed resilience, character, and they deserve that win yesterday for the year they've put in.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can all sing the plaudits of Will Scal here, but I think the launch pad for most attacks, Pat, were the half back line with Sean Byrne, with Mikey Weir and Michael Maloney either side of him. I think tone from very early on.
Yeah, the half-back line, and it wasn't just yesterday that they came to the fore. Like, they have been very instrumental in all the games, you know. But the two wing backs, especially, like, they kept driving forward. For Maloney to be at the end of the pass for the third goal, like, you know, for a number 7 to be standing on the edge of the square, you know, it's intelligence, number one, but it's energy and work rate to get into that position, like, you know. So he wasn't just contented just to do his job as a defender. He wanted to make sure he was in part of it. He ended up scoring 1-2, like, you know. That's a huge turnout. But what was very pleasing overall was the whole 6 forwards starting all scored, and out of the 3-11 we actually scored all from play. And I don't think we actually got a free that we could have scored.
We'll have one, I think.
Top of the D.
Yeah.
Maybe. But in fairness to Macaulay, the ref, he let the game go, and as a spectacle for a neutral, it was fantastic. You know, for young lads, they just went out and expressed themselves. You know, but to say a good start is half the battle, and yesterday really showed it. You know, because like the start we got, if Kerry had got that start, you would. If somebody said to you, "Well, one of these teams is going to get a," Kerry will do it because that's what they're traditional. But Westmeath said, "To hell with this, we're going for this." It was fantastic.
Yeah, you just mentioned Brendan Colley there. I thought for maybe a 10 or 15 minute period there in the second half, I felt, especially with was it Ben Sheeran was doing tackling there inside the 14, exactly what you want your defenders doing, keeping the man pushed out, didn't pull, didn't drag, and whistle went.
Yeah, well, that was one free. And what I admired about Sheeran was he was very well coached, because he was going with his left hand. He didn't come across with one hand on the back and tackle. He actually kept tackling. Now, he was robust, but some give, some don't. It was, you know, it was given against them all right. Most managers would never complain about the young lad, the way he tackled. He was fantastic as regards, but I admired the fact that he wasn't going in deliberately causing a foul. You know, he worked extremely hard, but there wasn't that many frees conceded in the whole game, you know, and overall. So complaints on that end, but either way,
it was probably a harsh enough free though at the time, because it was the equalising score for Kerry, and it could have actually changed the game a small bit at the time. And I remember I was just watching it thinking that was some great defending, and it was. And then for him to be given a free against him, it nearly took away from that skill, that art, and what he'd done. But look, ultimately it didn't matter in the end. But for me at that time, I remember thinking, God, that was very harsh.
But even a couple of minutes, I thought that was a very harsh free as well.
Yeah, that was crucial. I actually made a note at the time that there was pressure. I think that was to go in front for the first time. And I remember kind of making a note at the time, like, the nerves here. Like, that's a free that guy would have scored 9 times out of 10. Luckily for Coláiste, that was the 10th time. And when they couldn't get ahead, as long as they couldn't get ahead, I said, I still thought there was enough in the tank for Coláiste. But when they did get ahead, I'd be dishonest if I didn't say, I said, this is going to be a heartbreak here now, you know. So it just showed fantastic character, as like Dean McNichol's father, the same line of work as Denis, and out that country as well. Be very fond of Pat. One of the first hugs I got after the game, and he says, I remember Buckley, you saying to me early in this campaign, he says, this is a most un-Westmeath-like team, in that Westmeath, you know how passionate I'd be. But for years growing up, I saw Westmeath teams. If we went down in a situation like that, you didn't win, they lost. But this was most un-Westmeath-like, you know, the towel, and to get those 2 points in injury time was just fantastic. I mean, I can imagine what it must have been a fantastic game for a neutral, but when you're engrossed in it, you don't enjoy a game like that. Right? You're involved.
Look, Gerry, I'd have to agree with you there. The standard was outstanding. Like, you know, for a neutral watching that game, it was especially in the first half, it was end to end, up and down, attack football. Buckley in the goals. I thought he was outstanding. He controlled the area well. He was in charge there around the square, and he made a couple of vital interceptions and you know, it's always good to have a really solid goalie on your team. You know that you can rely on him. But overall, though, I thought defensively, Mullingar, the CBS, you know, were excellent. You know, they were so well coached. You know, they just didn't panic on the ball. And Michael Maloney mentioned that after the game, that they didn't panic. They kept playing their game. And eventually, then they got those 2 chances at the end, which was their just rewards.
You said they weren't like some Westmeath teams. There was a part in that game in the second half where Adam Buckley reminded me ball there when the team were under serious pressure, and he fielded it, and the way he caught it, nearly went back over his head and caught it. A really high pressurised situation and come out. It gave the whole team a lift. We're talking about characters. That was a very character moment for him, and it was a very, very important, crucial catch.
I felt just their decision making for young lads, like most of these young lads are 17, 18 years of age. Like even Finn Higgins there at the end, we were a point down, looked like there was a goal chance on, but really just probably said to himself, we'll tap this over, get back to a draw, and if we have to go to extra time, so be it. It was just was exceptional.
Yeah, and it's funny, I'm delighted you brought his name up. Like we mentioned Will for obvious reasons because he's a brilliant footballer, but we've mentioned the 3 half backs who've all had great campaigns. Adam Buckley, who's heroes of that team, who impressed yesterday, like, you know, Finn Higgins and Conor Cleary's goal, like they wouldn't be the star names. I thought they had great matches, so I've always felt it was a well balanced team. And you know, a lot of the lesser lights came through yesterday, and you know, there was a great spread of scores, and I think they can all hold their heads high. But and you know, I'm delighted you mentioned Adam Buckley. He's no relation. I'm not claiming him as any Buckley that I know, but I think we might have found a Westmeath keeper. Not putting any pressure on the lad, but you know, in a year or two time, who might be our keeper for 10 to 15 years.
Please God. Just in terms of where this ranks in victories in Westmeath down through the years, where the likes of this rank?
Oh well, it's obviously your team in 04 takes pride of place. Then you have the minors in 95, and it was that wonderful, probably mentioned it later, that wonderful function the other night for that under 21s, and to be next in line after that. Personally,
I'd agree with that, Alan. It's you know, Westmeath don't win All Irelands too often at any level, and you know, to win it like the way they did it against scary opposition, one of the top achievements of the county.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I agree with Brendan. We don't win too many, so it's fantastic. Number one, to get to a position to be in with a chance of winning it, you know, and then to go. But you know, it's great it was great to win, but it's great to beat a renowned household team. You know, if you had beaten someone from the west of Ireland that possibly, you know, the tradition is there. The fact that Mark O'Shea was there, he had that, you know, once he got them in at half time, he obviously got a good influence on them because they really steadied the ship, you know, 6 down, they clawed their way back. We couldn't get a hold of the ball in the scoring zone. Like, we went through 20 minutes with 2 points, 25 minutes with 3 points. We finished up, you know, strong. This team could have their name on the cup a long time out. You know, he was going to all the games saying that they were getting the rub of the green in a few. We got a rub of the green in a couple of times yesterday. You know, we got 2 goals. Possibly, you know, Conor Cleary, what he'd done with the ball, if it was out in the middle of the field, I would imagine it would have been a free for over carrying the ball. But he executed the goal so well that it would be a brave referee to disallow it on the time. And actually, the third goal, if you remark, it was a kick out. The Kerry man caught it and stumbled, and the ball fell forward. And we actually had an extra man to pick up the pieces. Went straight in, gave it to Higgins, who crisscrossed it over for the goal for Maloney. You know, and you need luck. You'll win nothing without luck. And I don't care who you are, whether you're a top golfer, tennis player, or a footballer. You want luck. And if she's with you, you're flying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I can't remember who was at what. Who's at the game against Pat Snaven. Pat Snaven had a free kick. The goalie took it to win the game. And when it left his boot, I thought it was going over the black spot. But somebody up in the sky over in the Leinster quarter-final.
Yeah, just goes to show. But listen, congratulations to them. We could stay here all night talking about their victory yesterday, but I think that over the next episode or two, we're going to get the lads in and we'll have a right good chat with them then. So congratulations to Dean McNicholas and his management team, and especially the panel of players. Wonderful victory, and great to start off a year for Westmeath football going forward like that.
Can I just say one thing in relation to that? The two other people involved are Brian Murta and Matt Carney, and I did a piece on the radio today, and Dean was at the other end of the food and hugged Matt and Dean umpteen times yesterday. I said, I'm dying to give Brian Murta a hug. So the word got out to the Downs that the original Brian Murta, that I was trying to hug him. So a fella said to me today, Murta's wondering what you want to hug him for. Well, he said, well, tell him it's not him I want to hug. It's the Roscommon Brian Murta that's involved in Coláiste Mhuire. So if anyone is out in the Downs, will you tell
from Downs to let you hug.
I was exactly the very point I'm making.
But anyway, we'll move on. And we'll sort of have a quick chat about the Westmeath senior hurler this weekend in the last round of the league against Mayo. But we'll just have a quick chat with the lads here about the Gerry match. It was a little bit. We had a few nervous moments towards the end. I would have made this weekend's game a little bit more awkward than it is. But just the Gerry match, Westmeath 120, Gerry 313, a 1-point win for us. But some things went really, really well in the day, but maybe the last 5 or 10 minutes weren't great.
I'd agree with that, Alan. We look at the record books will show we won the game by a point, but we didn't win it in any kind of a convincing fashion. We died a bit of a death near the end, and we defended poorly. There's a couple of goals conceded in injury time, I think. And look, it wasn't pretty, but we got the result, and it is what it is. The panel is very. There's a lot of injuries there, and we're relying on guys down the line to kind of close out games, and you really are pushing the limits. We have 4 or 5 of our spine of our team are missing, and it's very difficult to keep that for 72 to 73 minutes to bringing in subs and to keep that momentum going again. So look at. We got the win. They're looking forward now to the last game. Maybe try and see can we get a few of those guys that are injured back on the field.
Yeah, the one thing we have to be really happy with the amount of players getting game time, Pat, that have never really seen game time with Westmeath senior hurlers before, and that Joe McDonough.
Yeah, well, it's the thing that we have to be trying out, because they're a new panel. There is probably more opportunities given to guys. The fact that we have so many injuries, as Brendan highlighted there. But we move on. We did cover the aspect of the game last week in the last podcast. There's no point going back on it again. Possibly he might be able to blow out a few more of the lads that are on the panel. There is a few lads there that haven't actually got a chance. But it's the game after that, we said last week, is the one we have to go to London. We must win it, just consolidate Joe McDonough's status. I did say last week that I hope Gerry don't do us a favour. I still stand over that. The bottom line is this team needs another year in this division to get their footings, to realise, as Ray said last week, there was some of these guys haven't played senior. So they need a little bit of time. It's time and patience. The injuries will clear up eventually, but we have to make sure we consolidate what we're in, because it's very, very important, going forward, that we are in the Joe McDonough. And we'll regroup again. But it's credit to the management in that it's a very difficult hand that they were dealt, and it got. So the grass is starting to grow. The weather is supposed to be picking up. You'd be hoping that these guys, they're light and foot, they will start producing a better type of hurling. Enjoy their hurling, and express themselves, and that's all we can wish for.
Yeah, we've had a few obviously bright lights throughout the league, but none more so than David Williams Gerry. He was exceptional last day.
Yeah, I'm going to Mayo, please God. I don't think there'll be a huge crowd either from Mayo or Westmeath at it. They don't really have a huge interest in when they beat us in a match by a point. I remember Keith Higgins, the dual star, who's an outstanding hurler, absolutely great hurler, would have hurled with the best, beat us almost by himself, but I don't think that they have a Keith Higgins anymore, hopefully not. But so yeah, David has been very good. Yeah, he's taken on the kind of mantle of I see he was the captain the last day in Johnny Birmingham's absence. For a young man to be appointed, management have great faith in him. He's very reliable from frees and chips in with scores from play as well. So he's going to be crucial for many years in the Westmeath jersey, and you'd expect him to play a pivotal role in Castlebar next Saturday. If we don't win this, I wasn't in the podcast last week, but I'm glad Pat, whose hurling expertise would dwarf mine, obviously, said the same thing about the Meath Kerry match. I'm not sure that we're ready just to go up just yet, but let's concentrate on our own situation, go and beat Mayo, and I've booked to go to, it wasn't at the league match in Rice, but I've booked to go to that, as the lads have said, is key match of the year, But we've said we have to have patience, and we're having patience, and I think fans in general are having patience, So we're after losing marquee players. My lifetime, all in the one go. So this is going to take time, and really overall the project, given the injuries, is going all right so far. Our league performances have been solid, but we have to go down and beat Mayo and hopefully beat them well.
Just Alan, on the McDonagh game in London, just to confirm for our listeners that the game is on Sunday the 19th of April at 1 p.m. So if people are making arrangements or travel arrangements, they need to book for Sunday. So that's the matches on Sunday.
Okay. And all other matches in that are Saturday by the looks of things.
By the looks of it at the moment.
Yeah. Just on the injury front, you're have a small part to play in there with them at the minute. Is any sign of any injuries?
I haven't. I didn't hear anything. I'm nearly afraid to ask, to be honest. But I'm hoping. Look, as Pat, they won't be like if a guy is seriously injured, like they won't risk him on Saturday. They'll play they'll play the panel, the extended panel, the guys that maybe didn't get games earlier in the league. So, but. Look, I think the plan, that most of those guys, their aim is to be available for McDonagh. So I can't confirm what their injury where they are at the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult one in a few weeks' time to go over to London, especially if we still have these injury problems going forward, Pat.
Yeah, well, that is true. But I also said last week that we're unsure what London will have on the day, because London is London. Nobody seems. Like, players could come and go. They could have drafted in players from Ireland in the last 6 weeks. You just don't know. Yeah. But the bottom line is, look, it's a crunch game. It has been highlighted. The management knows all about it because are applying their trade higher than us, and they have been going better than us. So, and we've two of them away in the north, and we've Carlow at home. Like, they'll be no soft touch either. Like, so, it's a game that, it gives confidence if you win it, and if we lose it, well, it's definitely, it puts you on the back step, So hopefully, look at.
Yeah, please God, we and all the lads the very best of luck in that game coming this weekend, and in particular going forward to Joe McDonagh. Just moving on to the football end of things, Westmeath had a really, really good victory. Denis at the weekend over Limerick, who have probably note for us to crack over the last few years, but 421 to 38 was very, very convincing for us this weekend. What did you make of the game?
Yeah, look, I suppose we spoke about it last week, and we knew that Limerick were really struggling this year in the league, and I thought it was the perfect team for us after the Laois performance to try and get a bit of confidence back. I suppose 40 minutes in, the game was neck and, it was right beside, they were right beside each other. There was very little in the game, and but in fairness to Westmeath, they got a grip of the game, and they pulled away. They scored 421 to 3-7, which is a huge score for any team. The lads come off the bench, 2 points, I believe. That's a great sign where lads can come off the bench and score. It just goes to show there's a bit of strength and depth. Thought Danny Scahill was excellent cornerback. Again, he seems to be getting better and better as the maybe he's getting a bit of confidence from the younger brother or something, or getting a bit of advice, but he seems to be really excelling there, and that, you know, his first real year in the Westmeath senior jersey. Excuse me. Matty Whittaker was exceptional again. He made a powerful run there to set up Luke Loughlin's goal. Under a bit of pressure at that stage. So, look, overall it was a good performance, good scoring performance, but they did concede 2 very soft goals, and that'll be a concern against better opposition.
Gerry, a game that was played in all elements of weather, really. It was tough for the supporters to be there and trying to stick it out, but a lot of very, very good football in difficult conditions.
Yeah, the 4 seasons all in the one day, and yeah, you don't like when you're racking up 421. You going in too much on the negatives, but there was a Limerick reporter beside me before the game. Said, "What do you think?" I said, "I think we'll win," but I said, "We're letting in shocking soft goals." So he said, "You weren't exaggerating." So Mark said afterwards, you know, he obviously wouldn't be happy with that, and no one deliberately goes out and makes mistakes, and it's unfortunate these things are happening, but against better opposition you let in 3 soft goals, you know, certainly 2 of them were soft. You won't be pegging that back too handy, you know, but overall I was happy. 421's a huge score, and Mark was at pains to point that out afterwards, but it's all kind of zany form, that league. You wouldn't know who's going to beat whom, but like even from last year the way things have changed, like we lost to Limerick in well this year. We pulverised Laois in the Tailteann Cup last year after being badly beaten by them this year, and even that Division 3 that we're in now, I know it's all down, it's a very simple maths the last day, and Pat will comment on his brother Aidan talking, forewarning us that Wexford will be waiting for us that day. The maths are very simple obviously for next weekend, but there have been some zany results in that division really overall, but our performances in general, but it's all down to the wire next Sunday in Wexford Park, and let's hope that we produce the best bits of what we've seen so far.
Just one thing to comment on is Mark McHugh's interviews. His honesty in a lot of his interviews, he doesn't pull any punches. He says what he's thinking, and that's what I suppose the likes of Gerry, the journalist on the panel, you love to hear the honesty in them types of things. You don't want to hear a lad that's going to brush across little cracks. He's very, very honest in the way that he goes about it.
He's not into the platitudes. No. He says it as it is, and I think you know, like, there's no point in glossing over the mistakes or the weaknesses that are there. And one of the things that I think that has been addressed, and I remarked it on Sunday, was that we did retain possession better from our kick-outs. I thought Breen Cooney and Johnny Lynham had an excellent... I thought that we retained our possession a lot better in the last day. Now, the elements did play a significant part in the game, but I think Mark would be happy with that aspect of the game, that we've struggled in that area in the league to date, but I thought on last Sunday was a significant improvement in retention of the ball.
Yeah. Just Pat, you'd have a half a foot in Wexford with Aidan been down there. How difficult is this task going to be for this team to go down there and get a win?
Sure, look, at any day you go out is difficult, you know. You can't just go out presuming that you're going to win a game. Like, I mean, as Denis said, for 40 minutes it looked tick for tat against Limerick. To put away easily. So look, I remember talking to Aidan about a couple of weeks back, and there was three rounds to go, and he said if we can match Westmeath all the way to the last game, he says we'll give them hell. Now all the Wexford man as well.
He's not a Wexford man when he's up here, but anyway, go on.
But anyway, look, at the thing about it is, Wexford had a huge result below in Clare the last day. Now, the elements could have played a big part in it, because there was heavy rain and wind, and what is like the team that made the best, you know, availability of that, taking their scores, always kind of comes out on top, and they had a good purple patch with the wind, you know. But look, at Wexford Park is a fine big pitch, and the last time myself and Gerry were down there, Westmeath had a huge victory. Yeah. You'll be hoping that they go down. The weather will be a bit kinder, I think, this weekend, and it'll be more suitable to the Westmeath forwards, and that the pitch is big and wide, it's suitable to them also. It's Wexford were very, very unlucky against Limerick. They only got caught. They lost to Limerick, I think, by the last kick of the ball. They won that match. They should have won it. They would be 2 points ahead of us going into this game. So as it stands, look, we're level with them. They only came up from Division 4 last year. You would expect, I'd say Mark McHugh, if they don't get over the line next weekend, will be really soul searching. Because he'll be wondering, where did this go wrong? Because to get to the Division 2, get it steadied up and set a real target for the Leinster Championship. They won't find it easy, but I still think, look at, with the weather being the way it is, I'd say he'll have them well organised, well tuned. But it will be a tough task because Wexford are big hardy devils, you know, and they're at home and they believe, like, if they can go from 4 to 2, they'll go.
Yeah, there's quite a lot of teams to do nearly in a row, but it's Gerry have done it as well, and it's going to be it's not going to be an easy task to go down to Wexford, Gerry. We've been playing really good football at times, and then poor enough. Like we played poorly against Laois and poorly against Down, but at the same time we should be going in with an element of expectancy in terms of supporters that we could get across the line here.
Yeah, well, I think if we produce the best bits of what we've seen so far, we will win. But will we produce it? I don't know. I was pleased. Should have said it just a few minutes ago when I was chatting. Like the 4-21, you know, that we kept plugging away for scores at the end because it increased our scoring difference. So it means a draw will do us now. As Mark said, you don't have many draws now, particularly with the new rules. There are very few draws really. But in the event that it is tight, at least we kind of know. Because I remember we went up to 2 years ago under Jack Cooney, and a draw would get us through. And it was a draw we actually got. So there's a little bit of comfort in that. So well done to the lads and plugging away at the end and racking up a big score. But it won't be simple. This campaign, not terribly sure from time to time what type of performance we're going to produce, but we'll have the advantage. I think Ray Glennon will be available for selection again, and I believe Tyke Baker is back fit again. He was a fellow who was shaping up very well, I felt, and I think if we have him back now, what his match fitness will be like, I don't know, but I think he'll be an addition. So I think we will win, but we'll need to play well to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Just on the weather, Denis, I feel myself, and I don't know whether you agree or not, that teams tend to be shooting for 2-pointers and not going for goals, and teams that are going against the wind. If you saw the Donegal and Roscommon, the highlights the other day, I think it was a torrential rain, gale force against the wind, got the win. I think a lot of teams when they're playing with the wind, tend to be trying out for these 2-pointers. They're really sort of starving the inside line a bit when you're playing with the wind.
Yeah, well, I don't think Westmeath have that problem. Like, in fairness, when they take the 2-point kick, it normally is on. Like, and we have some great kickers. Like, we never mentioned Ronan Wallace the last day. He scored 2-pointers. Doing that all year. Luke Loughlin's the same. A lovely kicker of the ball. Westmeath have some great kickers of the ball. Wexford Park is an unusual pitch to go to. It's a massive pitch, but it's also very open. If there's wind blowing there at all and if it's against you, you have to bring it in because it's a waste of time kicking into it. It's a tough pitch, but I'd like to say what Gerry said there. Ray Connellan's back. That's a big plus for Westmeath going down to a big, strong team. Look, they're only up from Division 4. They're no world beaters by any means, but I think if Westmeath have all their strong players on the pitch, they'll have a great chance to get over the line.
It's kickouts are big. Getting primary possession, I think if you look at Closh to Wirra yesterday, that Tralee CBS came back into the match because they kept winning their own kickouts and they were fielding the ball, and Ray Connellan would be a big boost for that area.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a feature now of the game with the new rules that the midfield battle is key to win that primary possession. And you saw yesterday in the game that, you know, Tralee targeted the CBS yesterday and we ended up going short. We tried that ourselves. Westmeath tried that in a few games going short, but teams cop onto that pretty quickly and squeeze you. So really, you really need to win that ball in the middle of the field, get it away from the danger zone. Ray is a quality player. He has shown like that he has that ball winning capability. So it's good to have him on. the two guys on Sunday did well there. So Mark McHugh was a bit of a conundrum there. Does he leave it the way it is and go with the two lads that were there last Sunday, or does he bring in Ray? So look, I'm sure he's glad to have that.
I think he'd probably go with him, Gerry. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't go with him and maybe move one of the lads and have an extra option in the half-forward line for kick-outs. But I'm not so sure what you think of that.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, you mentioned Breen Cooney there. Breen isn't kind of, if you like, hasn't probably the physique for a midfield player. But I thought his fielding of the ball, the last day, was very, very, very good. You know, so be an extra option. I think Ray probably will start, to be honest with you, and. You know, I listen, he has the experience. In a match like that, I don't have to tell you two lads, you know, experience is going to be vital in a game like that. Go down, and lads were able to, you know, kind of cool things if it's getting you know, rough and ready. And I think it will be a kind of a physical game. Wexford traditionally all the experience you can muster, so I would expect him to be played.
Yeah, it's a game that, if you were setting out your stall at the start of the year, it's getting into the All-Ireland Championships. Denis is exactly where we want to be. So, like people would say that on paper we probably have the better team going down, but at the same time, it's a winner takes all type of match, and
it is a game that's very important for them as well, and they'll be going out to try and win the match. You know, it's a very important game for them. We've a lot of lads that, you know, probably have never played a game of this importance, you know, and they're playing it, so it's hard to see how they'll react. It's hard to know how they'll react. You know, we know how the main lads, the Luke Loughlin's and the Sam McCartans, we know what them boys will do. But there is little doubts over lads that haven't played at that level. Will they stand up when the pressure's on, and will they get over the line with it? So that's a question that will be asked. I think they have enough for any world beaters by any means. I think down are the shining light of that group with Westmeath. I'd be confident of getting over the line, but I know myself from going down and playing Wexford, it definitely is a very, very tough place to go and get a result.
yeah, absolutely. And we wish the lads the very, very best of luck going forward. A crunch game for us this weekend, and please God, we'll be just a couple of mentions. Robert McCarthy, Pat, won his 8th All-Ireland 4-wall at the weekend. This lad is probably our greatest sports person within the county, and probably doesn't get the credit that he deserves. Like I can remember when we were playing Denis at the time, he was only a young lad winning All-Irelands, and the amount of All-Irelands he's won between doubles and 1-wall and 4-wall.
Family is like, I mean, it's not just him, it's there's sisters, the father, the whole lot. I mean, I suppose they have highlighted Mullingar as being a handball tradition because they have been at it. You know, Robbie Senior has been at it all his time. Robbie Junior. The sister, is it Aoife, is it?
Yes.
Aoife, I think. I mean, it was very nice to see they were highlighted on the Late Show back there at Christmas time. You know, as being a family of, I suppose, you know, handball is something that it's only in small pockets. I remember when I was in Finian's and Gerry the remark was involved in handball before, because when you were in there the alleys were there, but if you tip around little places, you know, Kilbeggan had a tradition of a handball alley, and Streamstown has an old alley. You know, it's a kind of a game that was synonymous with Ireland back 50, 60 years ago, and then it died away, I suppose, when other sports took over and that. But these people, this family have, and you know, it's great credit to them. I remember this year we were on holidays out and wherever, and I met this guy from Tyrone, and he as it turned out, he had the same name as myself, but he's Robbie Senior in an All-Ireland back in, I think it was in the 80s or something like that, and he said he beat him, and he said if you ever come across him, he said, would you actually just say hi to him? He said he was a remarkable man. And, you know, these guys meet on and off, but handball is, you know, you have hurling, football, you have handball. That's where Croke Park look at, and they have huge facilities in Croke Park for handball, you know, and it's a game that I suppose it's not really introduced to the young people, you know, because you have to have the facility and the alley and all that. But the one thing I remember about the ball that time is it skinned the hand of you. You know, it was the hardest thing. But times and Finians, like every lad would be racing out of the rooms to get on the alley, like, you know, because every lad wanted to play and whatever. And the thing was to try and kill the ball down as low as you could, you know. So look, promoting the game and keeping it going, and it's great to see him winning. Still.
Yeah. Just a little tidbit on that. Pat was in Finians after me, but in my time in Finians, in my time, the star handballer was a man called Denis Smith, whom Brendan would know very well.
Oh, yeah.
And I hadn't seen Donny in years. I met him actually a couple of weeks ago, and I actually mentioned to him, he's a great footballer too, a very tasty hurler, but he could do things with a handball, like. As Pat said, I'm delighted Pat said it, a hardier man than me. He said, God, playing handball, my little hand wasn't able for it at all. But magician with a handball. And, you know, just mentioned the McCarthy's. I suppose if the Luke Loughlin's or this one, or even still years later, you or Denis walk up the street, people know who you are. A lot of people wouldn't know who Robbie McCarthy is, which is one of the most outstanding sportsmen this county has ever produced.
We should definitely promote him more from within the county, like, because just a small story about him is when I finished playing with Westmeath, I peered two passers were cast down a bit in terms of managing both, but Peter was also doing the physical training with him for the handball. So Peter says to me on a couple of days, will you come down and play him handball? And I say, well, look. So I used the racket.
Yeah.
I couldn't beat him.
Yeah.
I was using the racket, he was using his hand, and
wow. Yeah.
He was just that good. He was just unbelievable. Like, he can put the ball through the. And you don't. To be honest, I genuinely didn't realise how good or how tough the sport was until I watched him play. Yes. He's an unbelievable.
Yeah, well, the records prove it. Like, in the final, and he went. I think he won it in straight sets, but he went for. These power shots, I believe, you know, to kill the game quickly. So he wouldn't he didn't want to do a long slog against the opponent. So he went for these, you know, to kill the game quickly, and he won it decisively, I believe, the final.
Yeah, no, he's a phenomenal athlete, and.
I suppose what people don't realise about him as well, he's a really, really nice guy.
Yeah.
He'd always say hello to you. There'd be no airs of grace about him. But one thing I remember chatting him and saw him in the Park Tile one day, and he was telling me about this handball, and I wouldn't know much about it, like, but he was saying that he felt like he wasn't getting a lot of support. And then he explained to me what he'd won, how many All-Irelands and that. I couldn't believe it. This is the most, I suppose, successful sportsman from a Westmeath GA point of view, and he wasn't getting support. And I just found it a little bit, you know, probably he deserves a lot more than that. And there's acknowledgement for what he's done. And look, hopefully there's a few more years left in him. I know the skill level that he has, that he probably has another few more years left.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and the very best of luck to him. Hopefully he'll continue as much success as he possibly can over the next few years. Just going forward, also just want to wish the under 16 girls in community. They're playing Sacred Heart of Westport tomorrow in the under 16 All Ireland A final. Massive achievement, Gerry. I presume you were at maybe a couple of their matches, but a massive achievement for these girls even to get this far, but a great chance for them to make a bit of history for themselves. Yeah,
well, it's a great tradition of ladies football, as you call it, ladies football or women's football, but in that school over the years, they're always there or thereabouts, and can only wish them well. You know, great work has gone down there. I'd be a big fan of the women's game. You know, maybe the tactics have changed a little bit in the last couple of years, but I don't think I've ever been at a women's game that I haven't enjoyed it. Can only wish them well, Alan. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, and a massive achievement for that school. Like, over the last number of years, they played in lots of Leinster finals and a couple of All-Irelands, and they're really, really successful down there. So hopefully they get continued success tomorrow.
It's good.
Also, congratulations to Ronan Wallace, who got on the against Limerick. Denis already alluded to it, 1-4. But we sort of don't give him the credit he deserves for his defensive duties as well. exceptional defender as well as everything else, but adds so much, Gerry, going forward to the attacking end of things for Westmeath.
Yeah, a great captain, and I should have maybe mentioned earlier, just going back to the colleges, what a great captain Mikey Weir has been. You know, captain is more than just the fellow who goes up for the toss. A captain leads. A captain is a fellow who, in my opinion, when things aren't going well, will say, give me the ball and I'll win it for you. And by God, Ronan Wallace is one of those. So he's been an absolutely outstanding player, and chipping in with all these 1-4s per match. We're taking it for granted, but than him in the last decade.
No, absolutely not. Just something to note, the winner of the Player of the Week competition last week was David Williams for his performance against Derry. Pat, you obviously were in at the game, and an exceptional performance from a very young, promising player.
Yeah, well, David, I said it earlier on, a good few weeks back, that you could build a team around David Williams. His skills are there for everyone to see. His free taking is what we call a 9 out of 10, and he leads from the front. Himself and his cousin Shane were outstanding. It's good to see him because he's one of the most prolific forwards in the club championship. Once you come up against Collinstown, if you don't mark up David Williams, he'll score where the goals are. So hopefully he continues in that frame going forward now into the Joe McDonagh.
Absolutely. Nominations for this week's Player of the Match for the Westmeath footballers were Ronan Wallace, Breen Cooney and Danny Scahill. So get voting, guys, there on all social media platforms. Obviously, hopefully we don't influence your vote after talking about Ronan so positively, but the 3 worthy recipients of nominations, we'll see what that is. But before we go, Gerry, we'll just have a quick chat about the celebrations for the 1995 All-Ireland winning minor team that really set a tone for Westmeath football for a number of years thereafter, going forward with their All-Ireland victory over Derry in the final, and especially the Laois in the Leinster final, where it was epic more than anything else. I remember, no more than anyone else, these lads were my heroes growing up. I remember being at all these matches, but very, very weekend for these lads.
Yeah, it was a lovely occasion. I was involved in the committee that didn't do an awful lot, to be honest with you, but I was involved in the committee that put the thing together, asked by Kevin Hickey. And I suppose the most important thing to say, the great news is, often as not, when you get lads at the age of 48, there'll be somebody dead. So that's the great news. And it was a huge turnout, great buzz. Some lads hadn't met each other in years. Darren Frehel was the MC. You lads maybe have met him over the years. It's the first time I'd ever had a long chat with him. He sat at our table, a pure gentleman, and in fact exchanged a few emails with him since. He was so delighted to see Coláiste Mhuire again, because up on the night. I had to say a few words at one stage and brought up, wished them well. So a gentleman, and he added to the occasion. But great night was had by all. I've got a bit of sense in my old age. I leave these things early, but I'd say a lot the following morning early. But 10 out of 10 occasion, nice meal, good speeches, nobody bored anyone else to the best of my knowledge, and great camaraderie. And as you say, they were a ground. You mentioned that the trilogy, the Leinster final. I remember the first replay in Tullamore was 3-12 to 2-15, and a hardened Offaly fan said to me a few days later, who's kind of lived in O'Connor Park, he said it was the best game of football he was ever at in O'Connor Park. Now that coming from an Offaly man, of course he was able to enjoy it. We're back to this thing again when you're engrossed in the match. I didn't enjoy it, but he did as a neutral. So fantastic campaign. And I remember when I was asked to say a few words, I said the first time I realised how good that team was. They beat Wexford the first day. Again, Pat's brother Aidan, good counsel, had reached the All-Ireland final, and it was a noteworthy win. But they played Wicklow on a Saturday down at Loan, and in the first half they scored 8 points in 10-minute spell. And my daughter used to go to all the matches with me, and her ambition was to see Westmeath play in Croke Park. And I left that Loan that day and I said, you're going to see that team in Croke Park a few times. And she did, so an outstanding. you know, stars on every line. Probably one of the best, most balanced Westmeath teams ever. No kind of weak link, and all nice guys. And it was a lovely occasion. I was chuffed to be asked and be involved.
Denis, you would have been fairly young now when this happened, but a phenomenal group of players, and we had the privilege of playing with a lot of these lads later on in their careers.
Yeah, definitely. And like, I suppose the important thing I took from that team was they were the first team to really get over the line, that showed that Westmeath footballers could achieve great things and could compete against the top teams. They were heroes to us all. I remember we had the podcast here earlier in the year where Damien Gavin was in and John Kane, and we were actually discussing about it. And I asked Damien, did he sing a song, The Boys Are Back in Town? Was he on the den, or was he imagining that? And they actually did. That's that. Right, yeah. You know, it was just real fun time. I just remember as a youngster growing up watching them guys going, wow, they were heroes. And then eventually I got to play against them and run them around the pitch. But they were a great team. I remember actually Denis coming back to play a league match in Rocherbridge. We were after playing a challenge that day, am I right? We were told we're not allowed to play. Paulie said it, but Gavin decided he was going to play. So Denis, in his wisdom, said, "Geez, if he plays a scuffle in the middle of the field," and Gav roared. Gavin Denis came up in a little bit of a fracas, and next minute he let it roar. He says, "Get up off the ground, it's not." Dennis pulls his hand down, blood everywhere. So you came to know him fairly well. But no, these were, as the lads are saying, Brendan, a groundbreaking team for Westmeath. Really and truly set the tone going forward for a very successful period of time for Westmeath.
Yeah, I mean, it was the beginning of a kind of a golden period really for Westmeath. You know, we won again in '99, the under 21, and then it was these guys were the base, like, for the 2004 team really. You know, and they set the standard really, and Westmeath built on that. And you know, it's only right that we honour them and recognise them. You know, as a team that set the standard, the bar for all teams following them to achieve, like. Yeah.
Pat, did you have much dealings with that team back in the day? Or?
I just looked at the match, went to the game, but I remember well that day in the All Ireland. I brought very difficult to get, so I brought a brother-in-law of mine actually. But I remember the day extremely well also because there was a terrific senior match after that game where Peter Canavan was on the lose. To this day was an exhibition of football. He scored, I think, almost everything. 1 point. Almost everything that Tyrone got. And Jason Sherlock somehow scrumbled the ball into the net for Dublin to win. But the occasion was fantastic, you know. Like, I mean, Westmeath, there was grown men crying that day because they never seen Westmeath winning an All Ireland, you know. But the question I would like to pose to Gerry would be, and I was just thinking of it today and I couldn't really fathom the answer myself. That particular team, the next big but anyway, I was wondering how many of them players actually were on the 2004 Leinster successful Westmeath team, which would have meant that there would have been about 26, 27 years of age.
Four of them were subs. Aidan Lennon, Tom Stewart trainer, Damien Gavin, and who am I missing? Who's the fourth one? Fergal Murray. Yeah. So no starters, because there's a misconception that was powered by the 1995 minors, as it was actually powered by the 1999 under 21.
Yeah, but the thing I would be always very level-headed about looking at things. Even yesterday, with the fantastic win, it doesn't guarantee anything going forward. You know, some players mature better than others. Some players options, life throws them a different hand, whatever. There's no guarantees whatsoever going forward that the guys that were fantastic yesterday are going to be the leading lights for Westmeath going forward. Hopefully they will, but that was just that's a simple scenario now. And 9 years after winning an All Ireland minor,
when you're at your peak,
at your peak, 26, 27 years of age.
But probably it was from them winning it,
Oh yeah.
it got the interest
Yes,
around the county
absolutely.
Yeah.
for everyone else.
But
to
it changed
say,
the mentality.
Yeah,
of the
Totally.
to
Yeah.
put
Yeah.
ourselves in
Yeah.
a position
It was a
where
launchpad, wasn't it?
we
Yeah,
want
it
to do
was. Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And the Intercounty should, without shadow of a doubt, go back to 21. Should go back. It should go back to minor, under 18, and under 21, because there's so much more chance of a lad going from 22 going into a senior setup than there is going from 1920 into a senior setup. Like, I'd say you can count on, if you look at our team from 04, he started for the Westmeath seniors when he was under 21. David O'Shaughnessy possibly didn't start too much. You know, all these lads that were on that team, I'd say Denis and Desi are probably the only two lads that started for the Westmeath seniors when they were teenagers, compared to, like, as Pat said, we look at these lads yesterday, and I hope to God they all go on to play with senior football for Westmeath, because if they put in the work and the effort that they're capable of doing, it will go that far. But at the same time, they need to progress, and we need to get also an influx of underage teams in both hurling and football, producing players every year going forward.
Well, I think Westmeath probably need to go into the schools and see what they're doing. Westmeath had 2 teams in the A schools competition, Leinster final this year. So whatever they're doing in the schools, they're doing right. And I think perhaps the county board probably need to send someone in and see what they're doing, what development, because if they can take that and bring it to an inter-county setup, Westmeath GA.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Dennis, because you can talk all you like about the foundations set up and all that. The bottom line is these guys came from nowhere in the last 2 years, and the credit have turned the players. Like, there was 2 years ago, Westmeath minors didn't perform, and there would have been these guys, you know. But whatever attitude and whatever mentality was told from 2025 and 2026 to win a Leinster last year and to win an All Ireland this year, and then the Maros to get to the final as well. Absolutely, it's in the schools.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap up,
Go ahead.
the minor championships and the under 20 championships are starting next week. Both the minor football and the minor hurling. The minor hurling is starting this, and it's a kind of a little bit of a misconception the way it is. Westmeath are in tier 2, and basically your aim is to get to tier 1, which tier 1 only contains 4 teams, the top teams in tier 2. We were fixed to play Down. There's 5 rounds, but as it turned out, Down have pulled out of the competition at the last minute, so it leaves us in a predicament that going forward it'll be kind of awkward. But anyway, the following next Tuesday night, the minor footballers are out on their first round. They're playing away in Longford. And on Wednesday night, the Westmeath under 20s. So the minor football goes on a Tuesday and the hurling goes on a Saturday. And we would be looking at possibly maybe 4 dual players starting. Possibly. Something like that. But the under 20 then would be in a very, very tough competition, because their first better. Did Loud get to the All Ireland last year? Or
They did, yeah.
Yeah, she had a fantastic year last year.
know,
Yeah, very
yeah.
strong underage.
they're- and they have, I
Won the
think,
under
10.
17,
Someone told me they have
yes.
10 that was there last year are available
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, very strong St Mary's RD team this
Yeah.
year in the colleges. Yeah, they're
So-
they're a force to be reckoned with. Loud.
Well, they will, like, and people will say, oh, the team yesterday. There's actually only 6 of the team yesterday on the panel of this year's under 20. You know, because they're basically under 19, like they're younger. You know, so
Just on that as well, like some of these guys that were playing yesterday, like they'll get a rude awakening now. Like they're back down to earth straight away. They have to, focus on the under 20, and it's a very difficult competition, the under 20 football, because it's other, like, and you just, because the group is so small, you don't get second chances in the under 20 football. It's very, very tough, and so we'd just like to wish them the best of luck.
Yeah, just on that. He'll be back, them lads, and have them on the pitch. What night are they training? You're involved in them.
Yeah, well, they trained tonight, and obviously the lads
lads
were
will,
excused tonight, but you'd be hoping that they'll be back in at the weekend and train Friday. they are an integral part of that squad. But you'd be hoping that they'll celebrate over the next day or two, and then they'll knuckle down and get themselves back in the right place, because they are a very, very essential part of the squad.
Yeah, and these lads that are on that, they want to win. They want to win things.
Yeah,
They're not
absolutely.
satisfied sitting down and letting other teams win. They're lads like Will Scott and them. They want to achieve things at intercounty level, and I've no doubt they'll be prepared for Wednesday night.
Absolutely.
Can I just give a quick shout out
Yeah.
to, I meant to do it the last couple of weeks, to John Joe Brady, 60 years a referee. A quick story on that, true story, not made up one bit, but I met a guy a few years ago. He's a Longford man, and I worked with his wife. And look, when you meet him, you have to give an hour, which I love, but sometimes you don't have that hour. But he was wrapping up, and I never saw him play as a footballer. I think he was just an ordinary old club player. But he says to me, sent off once in my life, and he said it was a beep beep from your county who sent me off. He says, a fella called John Joe Brady, he said. And I said, well, what did you do, Owen? I says, I suppose I hit a fella box in the mouth. Well, I said, that sounds terrible, like a sending off offence to me. And then he took a deep breath and he said, tell me, is Brady still alive? I says, not only is he still alive, I said he's still reffing. So we had a huge laugh over that. So good wishes to John Joe Brady.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
and refereed many a match today. Just finally, I just like to wish all Westmeath teams the very best of luck this weekend, and just like to, before we head off, like to thank Clark's Bar for their